Hello and welcome to the Overly Animated Podcast, where we take animation seriously. I'm Beatriz Mourad, and today I'm joined by Sam Quattro.
Hello.
And Hayley Nabuurs.
Hello.
This is the first in a series of discussions we'll be having about She-Ra while we wait for Season 2. Subscribe to our She-Ra-specific iTunes feed or the Overly Animated YouTube channel to not miss any of them. As you can tell from the title, we will be talking about the ship, the in all caps, the ship coming out of Season 1, Catradora. And you can find out more about this podcast at overlyanimated.com. You can subscribe to us on iTunes at overlyanimated.com/iTunes, where we appreciate your star ratings, or search for Overly Animated on your favorite podcatcher. So, guys, let me just start by asking you, why do you ship Catradora, and what makes them so appealing to you? Like, what is it about this relationship that, you know, why is it resonating with so many people in the fandom? Why do people gravitate towards it? Like, what's going on just personally with you? Let's start with Hayley.
Well, I think it's appealing because it's very confused almost, because it's got a lot of layers to it beyond just them being like cute together. Is they have this old childhood relationship, first of all, which has a lot of problems with it and like trauma with it, and then bonding through that trauma and all that angst. And then now we've got them set up as how the show's kind of setting them up, where one's the protagonist, one's the villain, but they still care for each other, which is a really confusing and conflicting thing. And I think they handle it quite well. So yeah, I think it's just because it's got a lot of layers to it. So it makes it really interesting, and there's a lot of different ways that can go with it in general.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And Sam, what about you?
So for me personally, when I ship things, something that really gets my foot in the door is having characters that I really relate to, and in that case for this, that would be Quattro. And I just want to see her be happy, and I just want to see her live her best life, because I see a lot of myself in her, and like with Adora, I can see that happening, so that's why I personally ship it. As to why others ship it, I really think it's that sort of enemies to lovers trope that they got going on now, and people just want to see Quattro be redeemed and just them be in love. And there's probably a whole bunch of fanfic, I haven't read about it yet. But it's wonderful, great, beautiful. Mwah. It's like a good pasta dish.
It is. I mean, to be like, while I was preparing for this, I was like rewatching things, and I was like, oh, you know what would be really helpful? Just going into Tumblr and seeing what the fans have to say. And what a mistake, because then suddenly I was just becoming a part. I was like, I need to be somewhat objective, and it's like, no, I became a part of it. I started like finding fanfic, and it was bad. It was bad. But okay, let's talk. You both mentioned like two big aspects of their dynamic that I kind of want to dive a bit more into. Oh wait, well, I'll just say very quickly why I like Catradora. I think they're cute together. I think they're great, and I don't know. I have a lot of complicated relationships with Catradora. Like, I love them, but there's just so much angst and things there that they need to work out. And in order to be together, they have to be different people by the end of the show in order to be together. Like, there's just a lot there and a lot of drama. And that's like, I live for pain. That's where I go. And I'm just like,
the angstier, the better.
Basically, yeah. I'm like, that's usually where like I am attracted to, is like the complex relationships between two female characters, and here's the thing, we don't get a lot of them, and the fact that we do get it, and it's done so well, like I wouldn't be surprised if that's part of the element. People want to see that, and yeah, so I don't know, I just love it. Anyway, so let's talk about these very specific dynamics. So one that was mentioned was the like hero-villain relationship, and this is essentially like a gay version of that. But I'm just curious, before we get into Catradora specifically, have we ever like seen that done well? Like a gay version, well, let's make it broader at first. Has there ever been a hero-villain relationship that's been done well? Like the one that I've seen like most recently has been like See, I even put it in the outline. I was like, if someone says this, I'm editing them out. But like but then the more the more exactly, the more I thought about it, I was like, it makes sense. And it's popular, so I'm like, all right, fine. But like the most recent like hero villain relationship I've seen is the Reylo one, which is Rey and Kylo Ren from Star Wars. And like having like a very big like resonating fandom thing. But I know. But and now I understand why, like, people like Glimmerdora, because they're Finn and Rey, and I'm like, oh my god, it all makes sense. Anyway, point is, so has there been one that's been done well? And then, to make the question harder for you, has there been a gay one that's been done well?
Oh man, I
have
don't know.
No idea.
Honestly, that's not really a trope that I gravitate towards.
So this is like the first time for you.
Yeah, because it's just like not really appealing to me. I mean, back in the day, you would have things like Zutara and ships similar to that, where it's sort of like, I guess Reylo's kind of the same thing, because it is the same sort of concept, sort of like the bad boy who's the villain, and you want the good girl to like bring him over to the good side. And I just think that's so cheesy and so terrible. But I think what gives Catra and Adora sort of a better ledge to that is that they were friends first. And that Adora was a part of the bad guys as well for most of her life. And, there's more backstory and more build-up there, and they have a history. And it isn't just like, oh, I see this bad boy and I want to change him. Not like that. I feel like it's much more believable with the Catradora stuff than like anything Reylo is doing, anything, Zutara was doing 10 plus years ago, anything in that trope. I think it's a great example of the, villains and heroes shipping sort of thing.
Yeah. Hayley, what about you?
Yeah, I can't really think of any specific ones. I guess I'm reading a book right now, and I guess that's kind of happening in it. So it's not a unique dynamic necessarily, but I think I totally agree with you, Sam. I think what makes this actually intriguing and not just seeming silly and superficial is that they have an established relationship and know each other already. And it's also, and we see this later on in the series and stuff, is that they don't, well, maybe they do, but I feel like they don't actively hate each other.
Yeah.
They're just on very different philosophical terms at the moment about what is right and what is wrong, and the gray area that's in all of that, which makes it much more interesting than just being like, oh, Catra's bad and Adora's good, and they like have all this angst. Like, they do share similar perspectives about the world, but things have changed. Yeah, so I think that makes it really good, but I can't think of any specific ones or even gay ones at all. Like, not at all.
Yeah. Well, to end my Star Wars references, you guys are saying they're the Padme and Anakin of the group then.
Oh,
okay,
come on.
That's it. I'm done.
I don't like that.
I'm just saying in Clone Wars, they added a lot of depth to them. So it's not just going by like Revenge of the Sith and all that. Anyway.
The sand. He likes the sand.
I'm just going to let that simmer.
Yep.
But no, yeah, I think what's really exciting about them is that we haven't seen a gay version, I feel like, of this archetype of like the I guess the unresolved sexual tension between like a good guy and a bad guy. I don't have a version that comes to mind.
I feel like it just popped in my mind. The show The 100 might have had something close to that with Clark and Lexa.
It could have, but they didn't go that way. Like if anything, it was like they started off on the wrong foot, but then they realized, oh, we have things, we're on the same side, I guess. And then it just kind of developed from there. I mean, it wasn't like such a, like, yes, they had philosophical differences, but I don't think like, I don't know, the show never really painted, like, it never really fully committed to like, oh yes, like Lexa is like the big bad of the show and she's going completely against Clark. So I mean, it like, for instance, like, you can make the argument that, like, okay, one more Star Wars reference, that, like, Han and Leia are kind of like, oh, the good girl and the bad boy, even though he's not necessarily, like, a bad guy.
Yeah.
So I think it's, like, it's very important to also make that distinction that the bad boy, the bad girl, isn't necessarily, like, a villain. And I think what's interesting, something that's really interesting that draws Adora and Catra together is that because Catra is such an interesting character and very complex, like what a good villain should be, or what we're seeing her become, that's what makes their relationship that much more, it just makes it spark. Look, I love Adora, no offense to Adora, but, you know, she is like that archetype, like character, like the hero, right? She's the one who takes on the world on her shoulders. She's the one who has to deal with all this power. What really makes this relationship is Catra and the way that she pushes her buttons and the way that they keep being attracted to each other and keep coming together despite everything pulling them apart. So I think because of the complexity of Catra as a villain and what she's becoming, I think that's why it's so unique and it's kind of crazy that we've never seen a gay version of that, and I'm just very curious of how it comes out, because, you know, we'll get into how it can be problematic, but yeah, so that's it. Anyway, Sam, you mentioned also that one of the reasons why they're so complex is and why this aspect works is because that they were childhood friends. Yeah. So if you have anything to add to that, or Hayley, if you want to add a little bit more to it, like, why is it so crucial that they did know each other before and that they do have this kind of bond and were able and, you know, kind of had to deal with this very abusive childhood coming together and being raised? Like, why is it that why isn't it detrimental? Like, why isn't it that people see that and don't see, like, oh, they're siblings. Oh, they're sisters. Even though I'm sure some people are like, oh, they're sisters. It's like, girl, sisters don't dance that way at a prom. But, but, you know, like, some people could be like, oh, like, they grew up together. Why isn't it, like, why can't they be seen as siblings instead of childhood friends? Like, why did it go right instead of wrong? Like, why did it add to the relationship instead of become a reason why it won't work?
I don't know. I feel like the answers to that might be in the first episode when you get, like, Catra and Adora being all playful with each other and, like, sleeping in the same bed. And I don't know. That's something to chew on, because now that you bring it up and then I'm thinking about it, you could really easily hand wave the whole relationship away as being, oh, they're just, like, adopted sisters because they, like, grew up together and they, like, have the same guardian. I don't know, man. That's hard.
Hayley,
yeah, it's tough because I think you could read it that way. By the time we get to, like, the prom episode, I think you can't anymore, because then it's getting really obvious. But I don't know. I think maybe why you can read it as a romantic rather than just sibling kind of familial love is it seems like I don't know how to phrase this, that they care about each other beyond just that kind of level, which is, like, so obscure and very subtle. Like, you can't, I would not blame people at all for thinking that, for not reading it romantically, at least for the first, I guess, half or whenever. But I think by the time we get to the end, there's more going on in their relationship that can't just be explained by them being, like, sisters. Like, there's very deep emotions that seem to be reflected, especially in that episode, the Promise one, where they get all the flashbacks happening, which just seems like it's on another level, kind of. And that there's, like, this unrequited thing happening with it where they don't want to say how they're feeling, but they're feeling that way. Yeah. And then, of course, like you said, Beatrice, that's not how sisters dance.
Yeah,
it's true.
And all the little, like, side eyes and, like, hand holding and stuff like that is not how best buds are hanging out with each other necessarily.
Totally. Yeah. So I just want to, before we move on, just very quickly quote very briefly something that Noelle Stevenson said. She did an interview with Polygon, and she said that basically, it's a very long quote, so I'm just going to paraphrase, but she basically just said that Catra and Adora are the core relationship of the show. And I think part of the reason why they are so appealing is because, again, they are these kind of, she and the rest of the She-Ra crew are dedicating time to fully develop these two characters in a way that I don't think we often see. We don't see not just often with two female characters, and also like in animation we don't see it very often with two female characters of opposing views and bringing them up together and like having them like clash so head on, and having them like interact the way that they do, like so directly. Like there could be like a very big bad like female villain and a very big bad female female hero or protagonist, but it could be like, oh, she's like the big bad, but like over there, and they never meet or whatever. But they're so interwoven together. I think that's what makes them stand out, and the complexities of that, and how we don't often see that just makes them here. Like the fact that we do see them, it makes it all the more. I don't know. We're not drowning. What's that word when you're parched? There you go. We're parched for this kind of we're parched for this kind of thing, and the minute that we see it, it's like an oasis in a desert. But let's move on to the best moments of season 1. I mean, if you haven't figured it out already, like we're spoiling. Sorry, we didn't spoil that much. It's all like background. We haven't gotten to the big stuff. But yeah, so let's just kind of hit like the big moments in season 1, and just take me back to what you were thinking when you were watching it. So first, like, did you ship these two like from the minute they were on screen, or was there a particular moment where you're like, oh, this is where we're going?
I shipped them right away.
Yeah, mostly for me it was because because I think I saw it pop up or something, and then I saw people online, and I think in like Overly Animated saying that it's awesome, and like this whole Catradora ship was happening. So I went into it with that being a motivation for watching the show, was their relationship. So I was primed to see it the whole time, personally.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Definitely. Dylan was like bringing it up.
Yep.
I wasn't planning on watching the show, but then I was like, oh.
Me neither. I was not going to watch it at all. I was like, no, I'm not into that. But then I saw all this and was like, and then I scrolled through the episodes and saw the prom photo where they're like dancing, and I'm like, okay, I'll watch it.
Yeah, I was definitely like gearing up to see that one when I saw the thumbnail for it. But no, I think what really, like, the moment that really got me on board was when Catra and Adora are having the fight after, what was it? They like crashed the ship or something, and like Adora is like, "Oh, I need to go," and Catra's like, "No, like just come back with me, and everything will be fine." Yada yada, and I was like, yeah, I feel this. This is the ship for me, at least.
Sparking some emotions.
Yeah.
Oh man, I feel like, Pat, that you guys didn't get like to go into the prom episode blind.
No, not at all.
Like
I was partially like, do I really want to watch the show? Can I just like watch that episode? I did watch the show, and I'm happy I did. So.
Yeah, because I was rewatching it. It's like, it's so good. I want to savor it. It's so good. But yeah, I think for me it was like before, like up to the prom episode. All that stuff for me, it was like, ooh, like there is enough there for me to write a fanfic. That's usually like my level of like shipping. I'm like, there's enough there for me to like to write a fanfic about this if I really wanted to, or if like, say, like not enough for me to like do like a reaction video to an episode, but like there was like enough there. I was like, okay, like I could ship this in like like I'm not super invested kind of way. Like I can have fun with it. It's fine. It's all good. Like this is all like ship and let's ship, and it like shipping is fun category. And then the prom episode happened. I'm like, wait, we're going there. Okay. And then like the minute I saw Catra in a suit, and I was like, wait, like shout out to Needle. Like the minute I saw Catra in a suit, I was like, okay, hold on. what's going on? And then they start dancing, and oh god. Anyway, I'm pretty sure it was documented on Discord somewhere in the She-Ra channel, like plugs for Discord, because that's where we have our meltdowns, and that is where I'm pretty sure I was watching it, and then I had that meltdown, which is always great for it to be documented. But yeah, so I want to kind of start with, because you're right, up to like a certain point, it could have been read as just like, oh, they're siblings, they grew up together, like there's no like kind of romantic tension, there's no big thing there. For me, something that was like interesting was that in episode 5 is like for me at least, it was like the earliest that we see kind of more kind of like a sexual tension between them. Episode 5, the Seagate, where we meet Mermista for the first time. There's like there's that like shot of them fighting, and it's just, there's just the way it's like storyboarded. There's a lot of like extreme close-ups to their faces being close to each other, like extreme close-up to their faces, like in the same frame. Like the touches are very intimate. It's like, yes, Catra's like hurting her, but she's like grabbing her cheek and grabbing her face with her hand, and like crazy.
Yeah, there was unnecessary touching happening in that fight.
There's like unnecessary caresses between the two during this fight. And like, Catra caressing Adora's face from behind. Like, I'm just like, what is going on here?
I was partially expecting a kiss during the fight, like honestly.
Like, I wasn't expecting a kiss, but I was just like, the way it was being framed was like, it kind of reminded me, and this is not going to be the first of my Avatar references, but there is this one shot in Avatar between Azula and oh my god, I'm blanking on his name, and Sokka. Between Azuka. Oh my god, what's going on between Azula and Sokka? Is that the ship name? That might be the ship name. I don't know.
I guess.
That sounds like a messed up ship.
But anyway, like the very reason that if they were a ship, the very thing that set that ship off is this one frame that they had, where it's basically like, there's like where basically she's taunting him and he pushes her against the wall, and then there's like a close up of their faces, like very close together, like basically push them there and you could have had them kiss. Not to say that's what would have made sense for that scene or anything, but that was what set off their shipping sales for their shipping fans. So like that was kind of what this was reminiscent of. It wasn't like enough for it to be like, oh yes, like this is like canon, this is gonna happen. But the way it was framed, it was like just very intimate. And then it's right after that Catra goes like, this is what you left me for. And it's like back to that kind of dialogue of like leaving me, not like leaving the mission. It's like, you left me, which is also very reminiscent of Bumblebee, just mentioning that. I'm like high on Ruby. I'm just mentioning so many things right now. I'm so sorry.
It's good. You've got references to back up your claims.
There you go.
Definitely. And also Bumblebee, so similar. We got a blonde and we've got a cat. So,
oh my god, you're right.
Like, people, if you like Catradora, go check out Ruby, because it's happening, guys.
But yeah, so, and again, back to the episode after the whole thing, that last image of Catra looking annoying as Adora's happy with her new crew. So no longer the Adora that thought having Catra was enough, which is devastating to Catra. Mm-hmm. So what do you remember? I mean, I kind of ranted for a bit, but what do you guys remember of that fight? Do you agree with anything I said? Where are you just like, no, this is like problematic? Or do you think both? It's like, yes, I agree, but this is also problematic. We'll get into the problematic stuff. Don't worry. But like, how do you respond to this kind of word vomit I just unleashed?
I think it was good. You cover a lot of topics. No, I think particularly the part where you were mentioning that how she personally feels hurt, because I think later on, and in a lot of cases after this, she tries to present it like all of her actions are motivated by her trying to get Adora back on like the Horde's side, and kind of framing it as like, this is the right thing to do, and it's bigger than us, it's not just for me. But I think in this episode we can definitely see where Catra is feeling personally hurt. And it seems like most of her motivations, and I think all throughout the series, her motivations really are to bring this person that she cared about back into her life and to have her to herself. But after this point, she sees that, okay, so Adora's moved on from me. And to kind of protect herself, maybe, she's framing it like, oh, I don't need you. I'm doing my job and we're trying to get you back because this is like my mission and stuff like that, to kind of protect herself from it just being a purely personal endeavor, in a sense. So I feel like at this point with this episode 5 is where we see that really kind of shift. It comes back in the prom episode for sure, but to be more personal. But I think at least by the end of the series, we can see that she's moving on. Catra's moving on. And well, not moving on, but is maybe giving up hope that she's going to ever have Adora back like she did.
Right.
And she's working through that in the season.
You could say she's letting go.
Exactly. Like off a cliff, maybe.
Yeah. She's just letting go of that hand holding. She's like, no more.
Yeah. And it starts here.
What about you, Sam? Anything to add?
I don't know. I kind of forgot what we were talking about on topic.
A lot happened.
A lot happened. I don't know.
Was the fight cute?
Yeah.
Did you enjoy the fight? Did you notice anything by the way it was storyboarded?
Honestly, not really. I don't know, maybe because I haven't seen it in a little bit, so I'm like rusty and I can't exactly remember, unfortunately. Rip.
I like that it showed.
I believe it though.
Yeah, if I remember it correctly, I feel like it showed that they were pretty evenly matched, which I think was good because
Adora was, that was more like at the final scene, the final fight between them, because like right now, like Adora was trying to heal the gate, so she was like a little busy, so it wasn't like she wasn't really fighting Catra in this. It was this,
but even like in that state, she was in her like power mode kind of
totally.
thing. But I feel like in this and in other episodes when she's just normal herself, I've never gotten the sense that Catra is like inferior in fighting.
Yeah. Which
is a good note because that comes up with her past where she was always told that she's like not good enough and stuff.
Totally.
And it doesn't, I don't know, it puts them on a more equal playing field, like fighting wise, but also abilities wise, which is, I think, good in that.
Totally. No, yeah, absolutely. Remind me to talk about this fight scene when we get into the problematic stuff. Okay. Remind me, because something hit me. But let's talk about something less problematic. Let's talk about the prom. That's the next big thing, is the prom. Something I noticed while watching, I did rewatch when I was like making the outline, so that's why I'm a little bit more fresh with this stuff.
Sam and I are not.
Sorry, that's why for everyone, like this, I was the one who had to do homework to like, anyway. So something that was really interesting is that basically Glimmers' anxieties about Bo throughout that episode were basically Catra's like exact same like anxieties about Adora. Only, Adora did abandon Catra, unlike Glimmer being scared that Bo abandoned her. And, it's a nice, like, parallel where, like, it's, like, things that Glimmer did are what pushed Bo away. Not that Adora was aware that she was doing things that would push Catra away, but it's like, oh, no, sorry. Not that Catra was aware that she was doing things to push Adora away. I don't know. It's just really great. And it's funny how, like, the moment that Adora tries to reassure Glimmer, like, no, that would never happen. Here comes Catra, the very thing that she did to Catra. Like, she abandoned her. And it was, I don't know, it's great. We see Catra frazzling Adora to the extreme and teasing her in the best way. And yeah, watching so many GIFs of like the dance, it
was so gifable.
Watching like so many, I kid you not. There are frames of the dance where Adora is smiling. There are frames, at least in the beginning, where she's smiling, even though like she's like super like, Catra, what are you doing? She's like enjoying herself. And when the dip happens, Adora is looking at Catra's lips. Because there is a movement in her eyes where she looks up.
You watched it so carefully.
So carefully. And I'm just like, what does this mean? What does this mean? Tell me, people. Okay, like, Hayley, Sam, what does this mean? Tell me. Like, why do this if it's not meant to be read as romantic? Like, what does this mean?
This is the thing with the animation, is that it isn't just like normal other shows where it could just be a tick of the person. They did it purposely. So I don't know. I don't know what it means. I don't know what it means, Beatrice. Like, it's meant to make you lose your mind.
I guess so.
When did you kind of lose your mind for the promise? I mean, you guys kind of already saw the pictures and
we
stuff.
did.
You kind of were already
so I knew that was
for
coming. I think it was when Catra like spun her back and then like caught her.
Mm. Yeah.
Then I was like, oh, it's happening. They're together.
I have to say, I like the build up a little bit more, like when Catra just like leaves a note behind in the trash can, and Adora's like acting all suspicious still, and she just opens it and it's like, "Hey, Adora."
Yeah, that was great. That line read was amazing.
Yeah. No, totally. But is there any kind of is there anything of the prom episode beside, like the dance? Like Sam, you mentioned the lead up, but there's also like at the end there is that moment where Adora saves Catra, and both are surprised by that. And not only that, but what I've noticed is that this show really likes to do music cues with these two. Like, we don't see music cues with, like, I don't know, Adora saving like Bo or Glimmer or something, or like something heroic. Like, usually when it's like something like particularly like character driven instead of just like action driven, it's usually with Adora and Catra. Like the moment, like basically Adora saves her and then suddenly the music swells and I'm like, what are you doing? What is going on? Like, I need answers. But is there anything in particular that beside the dance that surprised you about what the show was trying to do with these characters, about like what they're trying, like was this the moment where you're like, oh, okay, like this, like they might actually make this canon? Or were you like, we're in good hands, they're probably always going to be canon or something?
See, I was weirded out by part of this episode because no one really freaked out about like that their enemy has arrived, but I guess it's in a context where they can't fight, right? Yeah. So I think that was a smart move, but maybe this is linking to a romantic thing, is that Adora didn't seem like afraid of Catra necessarily until near the end. She was just more annoyed by her, which was a little random. But yeah, I don't know.
What about you, Sam? Anything of the way that they treated these two characters in the episode? Was it surprising to you, or what did it affirm any of your beliefs in them or anything?
I'm surprised they put Catra in a suit.
Yeah, that was a bold move and a good move.
Not like bad surprise, obviously, but like they went there. They did it. Good job.
I don't know, because I feel like I'm more surprised that they committed more to Bo's crop tops. Because I feel like, because here's the thing, like because it's always like this when a woman takes on a more masculine attire. It is not to say that it's never framed as a bad thing or like framed as something that
it's not
shouldn't
as striking.
Be. But it
was striking in this case.
Yeah, it was
like
striking.
Ladies wear pants as well.
Yeah, totally. Yep. But whenever it's usually like the men who take on more like feminine dress are the ones who face a much more intense backlash on all fronts. There's never like a good and a bad. It's usually like no, and the fact that we did get Bo in crop tops and him being amazing and rocking them was great. Anyway, I'm trying not to make this just a general She-Ra podcast. I really am trying, you guys.
I have a comment on that last bit about the outfits.
Tell me.
So there's this really great documentary that I love a lot called The Celluloid Closet, and they actually talk about Marlene Dietrich's whole suit thing that was really big in the 30s. Like how in the movie Morocco, she just like showed up in the suit, and how that's so appealing to everybody that a woman is in a suit, and it's always like a welcome thing as opposed to like, for example, a man being in more traditional women's dress like crop tops or dresses, etc. I don't know. I just think that that's interesting that, we have She-Ra here, well, like the show She-Ra, that's pulling that sort of stuff off. And then you have like Steven Universe that did the same thing with, I don't remember what the episode was when they got married, but and like Pearl was in a suit and like Sapphire was in a suit. Everybody's just be in suits all the time. And everybody's just like, oh yeah, it's so great and like hot and stuff. But nobody really thinks about, the opposite happening for dudes. I don't know. But yeah, that's just...
Steven Universe most recently. Like, Steven wore, like, the pink
Yeah,
stuff,
so... he's still doing it.
Yeah, he's doing it too, but not even, but, like, I don't think there was, like, as big of a reaction, or, like, I feel like there was more of, there were some people who were a little bit more negative about what he was doing. And I was like, but why? Why? He looks great. What are you guys talking about?
I think if we want to get very, like, societally deep, I think it's that, and part of why she did this anyway is that it's definitely like a power move, kind of.
Oh, it's totally a power
move. Right?
And
it's part of that is that it is a traditionally male thing, and patriarchy and everything else makes it so that a more masculine presence is more powerful in this context, which is not good. But in this situation, I feel like it reflects their dynamic quite well to have her come in and just be like Catra knows that she's causing trouble when she comes here, and she's coming in confidently, and she's coming in powerfully, which is reflected in her suit.
Yeah.
And the great tailoring on it. Like, it was beautifully tailored. And I like how the bow tie was, like, undone. It was such a good detail.
She's a cat.
Yeah. You know that they'd play with it. They're like, no, I don't like this. I'm not doing this. Like, I what I missed was a scene of, like, Scorpia doing her bow tie and her being like, yeah, this is not going to work.
Yeah, that would be good.
Scorpia has claws. She can't
you're right. She could have, like, I feel like Scorpia, like, is very underrated because the things she has to be able to do with claws, is it's so difficult, and she manages to nail it, and it's like we don't give her enough credit. But yeah, let's move on to the big episode between them, which is Promise, which is episode 11, I want to say, where basically this is where we start seeing, like, we get their childhood memories, we get their past, we get, like, that dynamic that we love so well, which is basically Catra being, like, a tsundere, if anyone knows that term, which is basically, like, saying something snarky, and then Adora being like, you miss me, and all that stuff. And Adora here is, like, shown as being super smitten in the beginning, and it's so wonderful. But what's so interesting about this is that by the end of the episode, we see that there are cracks in their relationship. And it's not just that there are cracks in their relationship. I'm going to quote Noelle Stevenson here from that same Polygon interview, because she says it really well. But she says, quote, "You realize by the end of the episode that there's been problems way before Adora ever left the Horde. So their relationship is a lot more complex than them just being pushed in different directions. When Adora leaves the Horde, they have a lot more to work through than that." Which I think is just... unquote, which I think is just it really kind of is the reason I think why they're so interesting, is because it's not just philosophical differences, it's also genuinely, like, we get, like, why their upbringing and why the Shadow Weaver's way of upbringing them is also driving them apart, and just character flaws between the two that's keeping them from healing and being able to be together. Because, like, there is this, like, one line where Adora in that episode is like, basically, like, Catra's like, I had it. And Adora, like, says, like, sarcastically, like, sure you did. And it's like, she had it. Why don't you believe her? So I think instinctually Adora did sometimes feel like Catra was second best, and did believe the way things panned out. And I think it's so devastating how like, the cracks in their relationship are, like, I don't know, like, say for instance, we take out, like, the fantasy, we place these two characters in, like, a family drama set in the real world, and they're, like, married. This is the reason they got divorced. Like, if they were, like, married, this was, like, these cracks would have led them to divorce, is what I think. And that's, like, really sad and really tragic, and this is not how you want to feel, but it's, like, it's so complex and so angsty and wonderful. So I'm just curious what you guys thought of this episode. Where were you not where, actually, but, like, where were you mentally while reacting to this? And how did this change the perspective of Catradora for you in terms of shipping? Did it change it? Or did you go in and were like, yeah, I kind of figured? Like, was there anything from it that kind of made you see the ship in a different way?
I think
Sam,
it made
Haley.
it. Oh, sorry. I think it
please.
made it better, kind of. I know that's bad.
Explain.
I know. Because they're sadder now, which is not good.
It could be better. Sadder doesn't make it worse.
No, not necessarily. But I think it, like you were saying, it makes it beyond just good and bad. It adds this whole other layer to it, which explains a lot of their actions previously. And it also relates to a thing I heard, I think it was David Tennant said it once, actually, about how a villain doesn't really feel, they don't think that they're the villain, right? In a lot of cases. Right. They're acting how they think is best. So that kind of brings, I feel like that's what is happening with Quattro, where she doesn't feel like she's being bad or anything. She's reacting to these situations how she's been brought up, and is also being informed by the fact that she's against her best friend. And then there's all this drama behind it, which again adds more layers to their relationship, which is really interesting and makes it so that by the end of the episode, when she does betray Adora, and it doesn't seem like totally random or hollow, because I think if it was just you won't agree with me on this issue, it wouldn't be as impactful. But it's clear that this has been a conflict between them that's been going on for so many years, but they never had a chance to really vent it, you know? And this is a pretty good opportunity to. Yeah, and it just adds a lot of depth to them, which is really good, and brings out all the angst that you could ever imagine, and also informs how in the next couple episodes after this, where Quattro becomes the big bad over Shadow Weaver, I feel like it's not really that she believes that the Horde is meant to be doing this, and it's all like she's like all gung-ho with the Horde. I think it's mostly is that she knows that in this moment she can become superior to the person who tormented her, and also kind of get on level with Adora in terms of authority in their like power structures that are happening. Totally. So what's happening in this episode makes that seem logical to me. Totally. And it didn't seem like totally random, you know, which is really good.
Yeah, absolutely. Sam, anything that you want to add? Anything that may have shifted your perspective on Catradora after this episode?
I mean, I agree with Hayley. It definitely turned them into more three-dimensional people. Like, you know, you go through somebody's childhood trauma, you really get to know who they are at that point. Yeah, I don't know. It was definitely a great character episode, and a great way to sort of see, you know, how we got here, and, you know, why Catra does what she does, and how that affects her relationship with Adora, sort of always feeling like second best, like the forgotten redheaded stepchild, unfortunately. And I don't know, like, with all that stuff in mind, it's hard to really not be on board with the ship, but it's hard to like feel good fluffy feelings about it, you know, like seek out that fluffy, you know, fan work, or, you know, just think about it in that way, because you know how much Catra is just sort of suffering, and you know how much Adora has suffered, and you're like, well, maybe let's go get some therapy and let's just chill out, and, you know, we can get together in like 5 years when we have all of our stuff sorted out.
You need some distance from each other.
Yeah, but well, they are constantly fighting too, which isn't very good. But, you know, you don't have a show without an antagonist.
Yeah. So I will say just as briefly as I can, because apparently I can't do that. So I will say, I don't know. I don't think Catra thinks she's doing something right. I think she knows she's doing bad things. Yeah. But she's still making that choice is something
she's rationalizing it to herself.
But exactly, not just her rationalizing it, but the fact that we can understand why, and we can see, like, the fact that we can still sympathize with her despite the fact that we know that she knows she's doing the bad thing is like not easy. So it's like hats off to like Stevenson and to everybody else who like wrote this, because that's like to have a character that it's easy to just, not that it's easy, but like for a character to believe that they're doing good, it's easy for us to sympathize. But for us to sympathize with someone who knows that they're not doing good things, but still chooses to do them, and for us to still deeply care about them, is like very, very difficult. And
to be hurting our protagonist, and we're like, yeah, I can see where she's coming from. Like,
and not just that, but be like, yeah, and I can still ship them. It's like, right. What? It's like it's really incredible. Kind of to add to this, we'll talk very briefly the finale, which kind of had this like big, again, another big fight between Catra and She-Ra, the final one of the season. And it ties nicely with the promise, because here's my question. Like, after everything, it's the last shot we see of the two of them, the last interaction between them, is looking longingly at each other through a lot, like, beyond enemy lines. So there is this question, like, in the promise, it was all about, like, you need to let go. And in the finale, Catra caresses She-Ra's cheek and goes, now it's over. And it's like, is it over? Like, did they actually let go? Like, what do you guys think?
No.
Yeah, no.
No, that's too deep what they went through and their whole lives. They're not just forgetting each other. Definitely not. But I think they're moving on to, maybe it's Catra accepting that she's not getting Adora back how she knew her before, you know? Because I think a lot of throughout the season, she's kind of, coming at it, we're like, oh, I'm bringing you back. Like, she's trying to get her back to go back to the camp or the base camp or whatever it is, the whole time, and phrasing it like that. But by the end, she's realized that, like, she's lost her, and that she's changed, that Adora's changed as a person and isn't the same one that she knew, which maybe it's her saying, like, letting you go is she's letting that part of her go. But deep down, we'll always love her, and we'll end up with each other by the end.
Oh, that makes me sad. That's like a breakup.
I know, it's sad. It's sad. But it's good, because it's healthy. Because, like, as we said, they need some distance from each other. They both need to grow as people, away from each other, and then come back together after that.
Right.
Yeah. Maybe. We'll see.
Totally.
We'll see. Who knows what will happen.
Okay, so we're done with, like, the best moments. I want to ask, like, do you guys think what we've seen so far with Catra and Adora is subtext? What are we reading into all this stuff in season 1? Or is it an intentional kind of, because here's the thing, like, what is subtext? It is, like, a very vast topic. But for instance, like, the best way that I kind of try and tackle this is, like, kind of comparing Kurosami in book 1 and 2 versus Kurosami in book 3 and 4, where, like, in book 1 and 2, it's like they have these moments that, it's like subtext because you could read into it and, like, you could have fun with it. But, like, in books 3 and 4, it's like, this wasn't subtext, this was text that was laying out them becoming a couple. So it's like, where do we see this fall with Catradora? Like, are the moments that they're happening that we are reading as romantic, as having sexual tension, or as, like, whatever, like, is that just, like, unintentional? Is this just us reading into it, or is this actual, like, intentional things that they're putting in text that will later on make sense? Like, what do you think? Not obviously we don't have an answer because we don't know how this show is going to end, but do you think that there is a level of us, like, reading into things, or do you think it's safe to say, like, no, this is an intentional thing that the writers are doing? Sam.
I think it. Oh yeah, go
Haley.
ahead, Sam.
Haley.
No, Sam. Go.
And okay, sure. So it's interesting because I was just, like, thinking about the concept of queerbaiting last night. Not to say that She-Ra's doing that. I definitely don't think that it is. But sort of, like, the things that people will put into their shows to telegraph that it's sort of going a certain way without actually saying that it is. Like, for example, the show in particular I was thinking about was Crazy Ex-Girlfriend and how they're handling everything. And sort of, you know, what is the line between intentionally putting in hints that, oh, these characters are really, you know, feeling feelings for each other, or that this character is, going to come out, or this, that, and the other. Line between that and just like, who cares, Da, 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 da. I definitely think that, it's all intentional, knowing who Noelle Stevenson is and her past work. I don't see a scenario in where she would be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna make them do a romantic dance and look longingly at each other and yada yada yada, and it's not gonna mean anything because Adora is gonna end up with Bo or something. But yeah, I don't know, there is definitely that line between having to read between the lines and having something be clear. And I think a lot of shows, especially when it's done, not to be that person, but unfortunately when it's something animated and geared towards kids, you kind of have to hide things a little bit for the certain people who will...
For homophobes.
Yeah, exactly, for homophobes. So that, it can get past the radar of people who, are actively looking and interested in that sort of stuff and who want that sort of stuff to happen, but still be, I guess, safe enough so that the homophobes don't think too much into it. Like the whole sisters thing we were talking about earlier. That's definitely an example of that. Oh, you could just write them off as sisters, but people who are looking more deeply into it will see that, that's not exactly the case.
Right. What about you, Hayley? What do you think?
I think you can, with anything really, you can read it however you want it to read it, and that's up to you. But I think in this situation, it's pretty overt, especially after prom episode going forward. And everything I've been reading online, at least from Noelle Stevenson, she seems pretty explicit in a sense that this is happening. So I think you can't say that, oh, you're just reading into that little lead-in line or whatever. I think they're pretty obviously making it a focus of the show is their relationship, and are trying to make it romantic. So yeah, it seems like, at least that from the writer's room, that they're approaching it from a perspective that we share, where they're going to end up together romantically. So yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Do you guys think it will be more overt as the series goes on? Because again, this is DreamWorks, and we have to, not that every show under the same company is made, production company is made the same way or deals with the same people, but in terms of the higher ups are the same. And, we do have to think about how Shiro was treated in Voltron, which was at the end, sure, he wasn't the main character of the show. I don't think Voltron had one main character.
No, he was pretty main though.
He was main, but what I mean is
ensemble.
Any sort. Yeah, but what I mean, again, I haven't watched Ultron beyond this first season. But what I mean is he basically got a groundbreaking kiss at the very end of the series, but it was with an underdeveloped love interest, and it was at the very end of the series, and we didn't even know he was gay until second to last season or something.
Yeah. The other thing with that that is maybe positive, is that, at least from what I've seen, is that part of why they ended up doing that, which is big and huge and awesome, is because of the backlash that they got from the season before, Voltron spoilers, plug your ears, that they killed off his boyfriend. And it was wild. And didn't get any attention or anything. So I feel like if the higher ups really matter or anything like that, that they have seen that this is a plot point that people are interested in and get upset about when it's not properly addressed. So I don't know. I think it bodes well positively. for She-Ra, hopefully.
Gotcha.
I don't know. It seems like it's being presented, like everything I've seen online, and I know like it's like a silo, like you only see what you're looking for, but it seems like a lot of stuff is like, guys, check out Catradora and all these articles about like, oh, the new big gay ship in TV, like and stuff like that. So it's not like they can hide and end the season and the series being like, oh, we're best friends. Like that would be pretty ridiculous,
right?
You know? Like,
Oh man.
yeah. Yeah. So I have hope. I have hope.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I
what about
definitely
you?
think that we're moving forward in terms of
Representation.
yes, representation, that
Daringness.
sort of stuff. While I don't know, like especially in animation, I think we are hitting a good point where it's unprecedented that we have this much representation happening at the same time, with everything just sort of a domino effect after the whole Kurosami thing happening.
Mhm.
How many episodes is it going to have? Like 52 or something. So however many years down the line that is, like 2-3 more years at the end, I definitely think like, something is going to happen. I don't think they're just going to be like, oh yeah, we're gal pals.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure there will be some sort of romantic action or words taken towards that step, but it's to be seen how far and how much progress we can make towards that, and both in the show and in the world.
Mm-hmm. And also a factor too is that where they are right now in their storylines, they're not getting together. Like they're enemies, right? So we have to get to a point in the series where something's going on and Quattro ends up changing sides, and then we go from there. So like we're not saying it's happening today, but I'm really excited to see what storylines they have in mind where that would end up being a situation, because I don't think they're ending the series still being enemies. That would be just really dark and sad.
I'm sure last season Catradora will make her heel face turn, and
or maybe we get like, I don't know, if we have like 5 seasons, season 3 or 4 or whenever.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It'll happen. Yeah, I mean, the redemption arc is in place
for sure.
Gotcha. So you guys, you are in the mindset this isn't something that's gonna culminate next season. This is something that's gonna be like slow burn. Like we're gonna make you suffer until you get what you want.
Yes.
I mean, there's no fun if there's not the chase.
Right. Of course. Okay. Well, here's something that I'm gonna throw at you, because I was thinking about this while working on this outline. Like, you mentioned a redemption arc. Do you think if Catradora does become canon, do you think it's in the best interest for Catra to be redeemed? Because, for instance, like, Noelle Stevenson has mentioned that, like, for instance, that episode 11, The Promise, she said that episode was, quote, Catra's first steps towards being a real villain, unquote. So it's kind of like, do you think a redemption arc is the best thing for this character? Because this would keep her from going, like, super, super dark. This would make her more Zuko than it would make her an Azula. Like, Azula, I mean, Zuko's an incredible character on his own, 100%. But, like, Azula's one of the best villains in animation and in TV in general. Like, just in general, pop culture, like, she is an incredible villain. So, if Catradora became canon, she couldn't be a villain anymore. So it's kind of like, is it worth it? Is it worth it to, do you think that this would hurt whatever potential she would have as a villain, or keep her from going the super dark that she is capable of becoming?
I'm formulating a fan fiction as you speak.
Oh my god, this is the greatest
I'm getting
thing.
an idea. Okay, so what if because I love the idea of her being like an Azula character. I want her to like come into her own and be a boss and be awesome. So if she becomes this Azula kind of level villain, and it's awesome, and there's like sexual tension the whole way through, and it's great. And then, but she's evil. But then somehow, I don't know, through a series of events, she's riding on this high. She finds out that like her family or her people or something like that were destroyed by the Horde or something in that vein, because she's this random cat person and we don't see any other cat people. Like, you know, all the other people that are, that struck me all throughout the season. I was like, is no one going to talk about this? Like, what's happening here? So
where are the cat people?
Right?
Where are the scorpion people?
And the scorpion people, because all the other, or not all the other people, but the vast majority of characters in this show are still like anthropologically human, you know?
Right.
Whereas like Scorpio, she's a scorpion, obviously, but Catra is like a cat, and she's very different in that respect. So I feel like they're not just going to leave that unaddressed, especially if we get into like a world building kind of thing, like what was going on where there's also cat people, like also tying back into Ruby. We got Faunus's, like it's happening. It's just straight up Bumblebee from Ruby, this ship.
It's like Azula and Blake had a child. That's Catra.
Pretty much. Yeah. So So I feel like she's going to become the big bad, which would be awesome. But then something's going to happen where something relating to her backstory and her like ancestry is going to come up. And that's what's going to make her change sides, and she'll get her redemption arc through that somehow.
Yeah, she'll learn that the cat people were like these really good guys.
Right. Yeah.
And that like her whole family was killed by the Horde.
And like their whole life was fighting against them or something.
Like her mother was like clutching her as whoever was like ripping Catcher away, like we're gonna indoctrinate this child.
Paralleling the hand holding, letting go. Oh.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
Because it's so like, where did these kids come from? You know, like
they stole them.
Dive into this. They stole them, exactly. They stole them from the people they conquered. And if she discovers that, I think that would be pretty brutal. Yeah. So there's my fanfic in a nutshell.
Amazing. What I've learned from all this is basically that all I wanted was an Azula redemption, and I'm gonna get it through Catra.
Yep.
Is basically.
Wow, you never read How It Became Yours?
No.
It's.
I'm sorry. What is this?
It's just this really bad, memey, terrible comic from Avatar: The Last Airbender. Anyway.
Oh, I got excited. I thought you were about to say it was like 100,000 word amazing like fanfic about Azula, and I was like,
if only.
What? This exists?
Even their design is similar, actually. Like they look kind of similar, and they have these big nails and stuff. You know?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
it's
so
happening.
It's happening. Oh, dude, like Grey Griffin's like on the show, so like we could like have like anyway. We're done.
There's possibilities here.
There's possibilities. Anyway,
we do a time skip, and then they have to get new voice actresses. You know, like,
but
anything could happen.
Look, but I don't want a new voice actress.
No, I don't either.
She's Catra. Okay, like before we get into like the heavy stuff, I mean more heavy than normal. I just want to say, like, can we just collectively thank AJ Mashaka for all the hi Adoras and hey Adoras and all those like line deliveries, because that's just peak like.
It's so much.
Like I don't know. I don't think it'd be a jump to say that that's peak queer culture. I think that's a fair assumption to say. That line read is amazing. Like. She may have nothing to do with that, with whatever. But I'm just saying that is a gift to the gays, and I just want to thank her for that.
It's such a good line read. It really is.
Such a good line read. Oh, it's so good. Anyway, so we've come to the point where we need to talk about the problematic elements to Catra and Adora. Because, you know, they are enemies, and on multiple occasions, Catra has hurt Adora physically. I mean, again, they grew up being raised to be soldiers. They had to spar a lot. But, you know, for me, it was really like, sure, the finale with the scratching of her back, and we see the scars, we see the scratches, like the bruises, we see it's not just like that they're fighting, but you don't see the aftermath. We do see them hurt. But for me, what really made me slightly uncomfortable while doing the rewatch especially knowing how I feel about Catradora, was that episode 5 fight. Because Adora wasn't fighting Catra back. All she was doing was holding a sword, pointing at the gate, and like pouring energy out to fix it. And Catra's just like scratching her, hurting her. Like, she is clearly like, yeah, she's She-Ra at that moment, but she was in a position where she was in a vulnerable position and Catra was taking advantage of it. And same in multiple other occasions, you have this thing where they're both hurting they both are fighting, but we do see these, like, you know, it does get very physical. And Adora does fear Catra. You know, she is scared of her, especially when Catra gets close to her friends. She knows what Catra's capable of. Mm-hmm. When Catra, like, kidnaps Bo and Glimmer, Adora's devastated. She's crying. She knows what that is. And when Adora and Glimmer are, like, about to escape, and there is that shot of Catra dragging the sword, and it's all, like, in the shadow, like, it's terrifying. And that, to me, that shot was from Adora's perspective. It wasn't from Catra's perspective, because we knew from the beginning that Catra was going to give her the sword and, like, tell her to go and be like, all right, you're on your way. So there is this kind of a framing where Adora is terrified of Catra and knows what she can do, even though that she cares about her deeply. She's terrified of her. And on the flip side, Catra is not, like, Adora isn't mentally healthy for Catra. Catra always felt second best. Like, we know this. We know the turmoil and how Adora made her feel inferior, intentional or not. She made Catra feel insecure, and that in itself isn't healthy. So, like, on both fronts, they have issues. And so what do you say to someone who tells you, like, why would you want them to get together? Clearly, they're not good for each other. Like, how would you respond to that? Sam, I heard a sigh.
Yeah, I don't know. I think in that sort of situation, if this were the real world, I would just say, hey, just, you know, you can be friends later down the line, but just don't talk to each other. Like, take some time, separate. I mean, obviously, you know, if you have somebody who you spent the majority of your life with as a friend, developing feelings, whatever, you know, it's going to be hard to completely cut them out of your life and, you know, forget them, which, like, I don't know, that sort of stuff happens. But I don't know, it's taking that sort of stuff into account. It's hard to, in good consciousness, sort of wish them happiness together at this time. Like, maybe when they're 30, things could be different.
Gotcha.
But they're not.
They gotta grow a little bit first.
Yeah.
Right. There has to be some sort of growth and redemption and change, but for both of them. It's not just Catra. It's both of them that need to grow. Hayley, what about you? What do you think? How would you respond to these claim? How would you respond to the problematic nature of this ship?
I think it's extremely valid. I can say that word. To think of it this way, because it is that, and I think that's part of their relationship, is that it's not healthy, which is kind of dark, but is true, and how they're being presented. Yeah, I think it's so complex, because I don't think they are good for each other at this moment, and we can see that. And like we were saying earlier, like, at the very beginning of the show, they probably weren't that good for each other anyway, but that's just how they had operated throughout their whole life. And this situation made it so that they had to confront their feelings and their emotions, which is good, and forwarding on into a healthier relationship. But yeah, I think something has to happen. I'd be really disappointed if the show just was like, I'm good now, like, let's be friends. I think that would be problematic. I think they have to have some sort of an actual dialogue between the two of them to address this. Yeah, and they're, like, at war with each other. Like, it's very dramatic. And on opposing sides trying to take control of the world and all of this stuff going on. So that adds to the complication of it. But yeah, I think right now it's very valid and is very important and needs to be addressed in the relationship for sure. It's also fun to ship them because it's like they're also are great together besides that, but it's definitely tricky with their relationship. But I think like what we're kind of getting at this whole episode or the podcast that we're ending up to is that they need this time apart to like explore themselves, grow as people, learn that their whole civilization was wiped out, and then come back together as a better pair with each other.
Yep. So final question for you guys, because we've gone for a long time.
We have.
What do you hope to? Yeah, a lot to talk about. What do you guys hope to see for Catradora in season 2? Like in this next batch of episodes that we get, like what do you hope to see?
I am hoping to see this Azula arc happen.
But like in this second season? Like see her, so basically see her go bad. Not redemption, but see her go even further.
No, I want her to see her go bad. I want her to be bad the next season. I think that would be really interesting and angsty. And would also be good for the show, I think, as well. If they had an Azula-like character, that would be just like, it'd be so awesome for the show thematically besides the relationship. I don't want them to be together next year. I want the like unrequited love, but pain as well, which is like so dark. But
just pain.
Just the pain.
Season 2, pain. That's what we want.
Longing looks across the battlefield.
Right? Yeah, like all of that good stuff. But I think the show could suffer from that as well, because something that was so good about this season was all their scenes together, you know? So I don't want them to be totally separated, but I want them to go on their independent storylines at the same time next season.
So we won't be getting like another kind of prom-like episode that is like pain. Yeah, but I mean, it's like fun. No more fun is what you're saying.
No more fun. No.
Only angst.
Just angst. Angst and pain all next season.
Gotcha. Sam, what about you? What do you hope for season 2?
I don't know what I hope for season 2. I haven't thought that far ahead yet. But if I had to take a stab into the darkness of my consciousness, I would say I hope for... I don't know, because like I'm thinking about the other ships that I love, because I do like Limodora, and I do like Scorpia and Quattro together. just either as friends or as whatever the case may be for the time. What I hope for season 2 is that Scorpia will deflect from the bad side, and then Quattro will be like, I'm Quattro. Why does Adora keep stealing all of my friends? And, she'll send just like a really strongly worded letter and like make a cat face at the end of it, and Adora will be like, oh, you Quattro. But no. I can definitely see that something like that happening where more people will deflect to the good side from the Horde, and it kind of just really grinds Quattro's gears, and there will probably be like a confrontation between Adora and Quattro, and things will happen. Maybe somebody will slap somebody, and it'll be great. Things will happen.
Things will happen. They sure will.
That's for sure. That's confirmed.
Sure will. But yes. I don't know what I want. I feel bad. I feel like I should have an answer given that I asked you.
Yeah, come on,
guys. But I don't know.
You need the outline.
I know. But I just asked the question. I just wrote the question. I didn't prepare an answer. For season 2, I kind of just want, I want more of their backstory, but I want more of like, not their backstory, but like where they came from before the Horde, I guess. But I feel like if we get that, then that might be a road to redemption for Catra. So maybe understand, like, where did Adora come from? Like, who are her parents? Because I'm assuming, because we keep seeing, like, the flashbacks of, like, we hear, like, whenever, like, she touched the sword, we heard, like, a baby cry. So I was like, okay, maybe that's Adora and, like, what's going on. And with, you know what I want next season? What I want next season is for Adora's friends to call her out on her feelings. So not that, like, I want them to be like, yo, like, why do you like this girl? She's horrible. And then Adora being like, you don't understand, like, she's whatever, you know what I mean? Like, I want her, I think what I want for next season is Adora, like, still believing that Catra can be redeemed, possibly, and then her friends calling her out on it, being like, no, she's bad, and then Catra proving that she's bad. And then when Catra does get redeemed, it's her proving to Adora, who's lost all faith in her, that she's worth believing in again.
Aww.
That's later. But, like, you know, I need Adora to 100%, like, lose faith in Catra. Like, I feel like that's not 100% there yet with Adora. I think Catra right now is already, like, cutting Adora off, and now is just going to go further down. Adora, I think, is the one who has to let go next season so that she can, like, defeat her. I guess, like, maybe she'll hurt her, and then, again, this isn't healthy, but they're not there yet. And then, I don't know, I think maybe, like, I don't know, I want there to be a showdown between them, where Catra realizes, basically, like, the flip side of the promise, where Adora's the one letting go of Catra, and Catra's the one realizing, oh god, I've lost Adora. Versus Adora realizing that she's lost Catra. Does that make sense?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I think Catra's got to do something really bad.
But, like, I want Catra to, like, make Adora cry, but, like, in front of her. Not while she's walking away. I want her to see Adora cry so that she can feel it too. You know what I mean?
So you want Adora to cry and Catra to see it. That's the order?
I want Catra to be guilty about it.
Okay,
like,
so
at this
I
point,
could
she
see that
hadn't really
happening.
felt super guilty, but I want her to feel guilty about it. But, like, at the end, like,
Yeah.
the entire season of her doing, like, bad things, and then at the end seeing the results of it and then feeling guilty.
They could
And it's
end
like,
up,
oh
like,
no, I didn't want this.
at a battle scene, and Adora, like, confronts her there. So, like, the whole season we've had this angst happening, and it's like they haven't really been near each other, and then by the finale they're next to each other and can vent a little bit. Like, I could see that happening.
You know, like, venting, and then Adora, like, crying. Like, okay,
yeah,
you
like
know
that.
there's that scene with, Ruby reference, but you know where's that scene with Yang, like, crying about saying how, like, she wanted, like, why did, like, basically, like, basically admitting that she needed Blake and Blake wasn't there, and then Weiss being the one that comforts her. So I want that to be her, like, I want Adora to say, like, not that, obviously, but I want Adora to, like, cry and say what she needs to say to Catra to her face, and that's enough for Adora to push her away.
Yeah.
And then, but Catra needs to receive it so that she feels guilty and is aware that, oh god, she's lost
And then that
Adora.
spirals into our redemption arc.
But that's, exactly. Yeah. But, like, she has to go really dark for almost all the entire season. And then it's at the end, like, the last shot is of her, like, feeling regret. And it's like, and it's the spark of, like, hope, like, oh, maybe Catra can be good, but she's gonna have to fix a lot of stuff. Like, then the season after that would be her, like, her doubts, and then the season after that is her redemption, like, her doing things to redeem
long
herself.
con, like, I feel like the big bad that we're gonna be fighting is like an Ozai kind of thing, where
exactly.
whatever, I don't know what his face is, but the big bad guy, the boss of the Horde, he's gonna be who we're fighting in the end. With Catra on Adora's side. Like, I could see that happening. But I think there's got to be, like, and Noelle Stevens had said, too, that this is just her starting to become a true and proper villain. So I think she's got to have time as a proper villain.
Exactly.
And we'll get all the angst out of that we can handle.
That's why I kind of am like, season 2, she's, like, voluntarily choosing the bad.
Yeah.
In season 3, she's like, doubting, but
right?
still doing the bad thing.
And then
it's in season 4 when she doesn't choose the bad, you know? So it's, like, long game, like, things. But in season 5 is when people believe her to be good, you know? So it's, like, long game kind of stuff. Anyway, I've just
We've got it all mapped
solved
out. Like,
She-Ra. I've just solved She-Ra, you guys. No,
Yeah, there you go.
I like
but
it.
yeah. Unless you guys have anything else to say, I think we're done.
Yes.
Love is complicated.
Very
Love is
complicated.
Love
Especially
is
when
very
you're
complicated.
caught in an intergalactic war with princesses and magic. It's just, you know, it's tough. Stop.
How can anybody be in
also-
love when that happens?
Right?
And not just that, but also, like, Catra's a cat, and cats are hard.
Cats
know,
are
they're
hard.
hard to like figure out. Like they're complicated beings, and like all you want is their affection, but they're the ones who decide when to give it to you. So it's like it's very
Yeah.
complicated.
Cats are nice. I like cats.
But yeah, so you guys can find out all the info on this podcast at overlyanimated.com. You can join us on Discord to text chat about animation at overlyanimated.com/Discord. You can support us via Patreon at patreon.com/overlyanimated. Thanks to all our current patrons, especially our patron of the podcast, Danny. And thanks as always to our Patreon executive producers, John, Ryan, Steve, Alex, and Hugh. Thanks for listening, guys. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.